As a performer, your body is there.
Hi, I'm Mad Kate, and you're listening to S.W.E.A.T, Sexuality, Work, Extraction, Art, Theatrics. S.W.E.A.T is a series of conversations about performance and performativity of the sexual and sexualized body at work, where work is defined as the labor of survival, the labor of care, creativity, and capital A, art. How exactly do we define our work? And how does that work entangle and circumscribe our sexual identities, our creative lives, and the ways in which we provide care? How do we perform tasks, acts of care, and identities? Anchored in our always already sexualized and racialized bodies, our complex intersectionalities, these conversations are about how we relate to our work and to each other through performance of work and creativity. I hope that they contribute to dialogues which normalize sex work and all work as deserving of respect, healthy conditions, and a living wage.
It is very important to question everything that we have it as given. For me, when I go to a theater, I always feel, why now should I see it? Why the lights go dark? Or why do we accept all these conventions? Or why do I accept that the person plays a character, and then puts aside their own personality? The fact that there is a group of people and you cancel the experience of being in a group, when you enter in a theater, I find it a bit awkward that there is this bidirectionality, but there is not so often this sharing.
This month's conversation is with performance artist Montserrat Gardó Castillo, who curated the series Politics of Invitation at Forum Freies Theater Düsseldorf, together with Monika Gintersdorfer and Annick Choco. And for the last 2 years, she's been working on the topic of brutalism with works online and site-specific in North Rhine-Westphalia, Germany. I spoke to her in 2022 in the context of my ongoing work with Adrienne Teicher on cultures of extraction within artistic practices.
When you do a dance education, you are trained to be available for somebody else. So my body is available to receive indications and to execute them. And then when you start working, you are absolutely an available body. Of course, I try to work with the people that I felt I want to be available for, or I want to collaborate. But the problem is that most of the time, this collaboration is not expressed as a collaboration, but as a power.
With Montserrat, we spoke about the new ways in which she approaches interactivity and shared experience in theater, how to rethink collaboration and collective resources, and the politics of the available body on stage.
So you have this virtual road movie called Brutology, 12 spectators who signed up for an online performance. Could you tell us a little bit about what this project is and about the processes of collaboration involved?
So the idea of doing online work came, of course, through Corona. And then we started to do prototypes. We call them the prototype sessions, where we were inviting some friends, like around 5 to 8, to gather every 15 days. And we would try to propose some formats. That somehow the main goal was to try to generate something online that engages differently our attention and perception, that is not a video, that you generate a community. And also how to try to engage the attention and perception in a different way that I can really commit to what I'm seeing. That it's not only a visual experience, but that it might be extended. So we had like 6 prototype sessions, and then that evolved into this, we call it the Ruin Loss trilogy. The topic was somehow brutalism. And then we use different techniques that also I encounter. For example, we use desktop narrative. We were trying to do a remote concert as well. We had some exercise of, we call it the collective mind. So it was between exercise and also exercising collectivity or community. So the evolution into the movie, or into the Brutology and online road movie, it had different elements. Like first, it was like meditation, hypnosis, because with the topic of brutalism came very often the concept of alienation. And we tried to play through hypnosis with a dissolution of identity from the spectators. So somehow the main idea was, okay, we're going to dissolve their identity and we're going to put them inside the image. And then there was like a guided meditation. Then there was interaction where we assign a new identity to the participants. And then the participants, they were trying to answer within like maybe a new identity or like this conflicting maybe themselves. I think the questions were broad enough that there was this intersection of, or should I answer as me or as the person? So yeah, and then the movie had subtitles, and each one had a character, and they were reading or they were dubbing the movie, and they were playing different characters from the movie. The idea of hypnosis came, I was reading the Celestial Wheel from Ursula K. Le Guin, and it was about one man that he was dreaming, and the dream would affect reality. And I was so obsessed by the fact that somebody external can manipulate your mind through hypnosis. And then that's why it came this idea of like, oh, we really need to try to do hypnosis, even when it's not, I don't know how real it was for the participants, but I was really obsessed by this hypnosis and trying to pick the mind of, yes, or what does it do to you when somebody is telling you, you are there, you know? Also, all like being in a road and also following the protocol we were establishing, it was also like the idea of like infrastructures, that whenever you are in an infrastructure, you follow a protocol, that being like the Zoom or I don't know, the riverside we are in now, or the Zoom or the road, you always follow a protocol that maybe you are aware or no, or partially aware. That was also the idea, to confront with like a set of rules.
I think that we often think about these technologies as kind of like, oh, they just enable us to do things. Like Photoshop just enables me to make images. I think the road is a great metaphor, or a highway. It's really a good way to think about this. They really do direct us in ways we can't even perceive, basically.
It forces you to think in a way, and we don't realize how much that is. That it forces to have a certain pattern of who is talking, like how we listen. That also, for example, for me, it's really crazy that whenever I had a meeting online, I can see myself. And then sometimes you observe yourself, how you talk. And this is so weird that normally you don't have that in normal conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of this age, of the selfie age, and this constant reflection, these constant mirrors that we have. Did you get some feedback from the participants to kind of understand how they felt? And what was your process of getting feedback?
Yes, actually, after every experience, we had an after talk that normally in context of theater, we never have, or not so often. And I really appreciate it. And it was really cool to see how the people felt. That also the problems of technique was all the time. It was cool, but at that time it was a bit like, for example, you could never see the video absolutely clear or clean. And there was all constantly this technology frustration. That they couldn't read, some people could read well the subs, some people not. So
like having to do with internet speeds and access in a sense?
Yes. Also, we had some people that they felt they were really in the road. I mean, we were recording a video, like we put a GoPro camera on the front of the car, and then we were recording streets, like mostly in Czech Republic, also Barcelona and Germany. And then the idea was to be really in the street together or in the road together. And for some people, it really worked.
Part of our work in terms of extraction or thinking about extractivism has been thinking about the opposite, which maybe is collaboration or non-hierarchy. And I'm kind of curious, how you feel like this has actually functioned for you in your project and in your experiences, how there's sometimes a disconnect between what one intends and how one goes about it, and then how one actually experiences it. I'm curious from your perspective, what maybe you have some thoughts on that.
Yes, so I've been working many years in like a sort of normal constellation of theater, like you present something and public receives it. And then the more I started to work on myself, like on my own work, I felt it is very important to question everything that we have it as given. Like also, for example, for me, when I go to a theater, I always feel, oh, why now should I see it? Why the lights go dark? Like, why all these conventions? Or why do we accept all these conventions? Or why do I accept that the person plays a character, and then puts aside their own personality? I don't know. There is a lot of things that you really have to start from zero. And what do I want? What is it? Like, what effect do I want to produce? So, what is it, And for me, I think the fact that there is a group of people and you cancel the experience of being in a group, when you enter in a theater, I find it a bit awkward that there is this unidirection or like this bidirectionality, but there is not so often this sharing. And then, with Politics of Invitation, whenever I had the possibility to more, give the input of the Politics of Invitation session, I always try to feel that for me the invitation was also an invitation to the theater, so for the public. I think this Politics of Invitation was born as the theater wants to reflect on what does it mean to curate. And for me, the idea of inviting was always not so much to the artist, but to the public. What does it mean to be together somewhere? And I was thinking, like the first session we did, it had to be a party. Sometimes besides Berlin, there is this thing that Germany is not really a party culture, So everyone, the theater, they wanted to open the theater, and they were very scared that the party would not really be a party, a funny party. And then it came this thing, no, like a party, it has to be done together. I can't offer a party. The party, we have to feel like we can put great DJs that play great music, but there has to be a commitment, we want to be in the party, or we want to make party. And from that, it came a lot, this idea of I can invite, but you have to be a guest.
I love it. I mean, it is such a relationship. It has to be. And I can really feel and understand, and have had experience with this kind of timidness of the theater, because they are unused to these kind of informal constructs and sometimes not trusting that they can function. And yeah, I think also because there's such a commercial relationship around selling tickets and having people come. So there's like, okay, will they be drawn by basically the person on the bill, like the DJ, for example? Or is there something else that draws people, like the kind of thing that draws people to a party? Like how did you feel like you could create that? Or how did you feel like the theater helped you create that sense of people bringing also themselves, or being part of the party, the creation of the party?
Like a party is a mind state. The same like also linking it to the hypnosis. You have to change a state of mind. That when you go into a theater, what is your expectation? What you get, and there was something we have to modify the state. You have to transform. And there are different things. Of course, alcohol. We were giving alcohol also in the closing session from Politics of Invitation. But then there was also, we had this of the makeup, or like we offer different, like we call it the transformation area, where you couldn't get in the party without a transformation, and you could choose what you wanted to use. Like it could be like to put a piece of cloth, or like sticker tattoo. Like there were different levels of transformation that everyone could find something, or painting the nails, or putting, of course, glitter or makeup. And And though I think that was already a step of, I want to commit already. I am doing a step for it. And I think also when you ask the people to engage, like what we experienced when we were doing the online road movie, there was one feedback that said, I was giving a character in the movie, and I felt now I cannot leave because maybe my character is important. And I think when you are given a task to fulfill, then your level of attention is different.
Yeah, you're invested. You're invested
Exactly.
in a different way.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with magic and ritual and the idea of entering the space and changing something about yourself. You change the clothes you wear or something. So there is this break between everyday life. And I think that the only ritual that the theater has basically is that you sit in uncomfortable seats and the lights go down. Like that's the ritual of the theater basically. That's the only thing. Whereas it sounds like you are looking at other ways that we can prepare the audience to go into some kind of transformation. But it seems like you were setting the rules, like you had, like we do this, you have this, you can go through here, but you have to transform. I'm not critiquing that, but do you ever feel uneasy in the hierarchy then that you have when you are setting the frame for this collaborative performance?
Yes, this was, we were collaborating for the Brutology online road movie. We were collaborating with a dramaturgist. He's from Barcelona. And he really constantly, he had he was very resistant to bossiness, to being given a task. And then I also remember once we were trying, when we did the prototype sessions, we were trying something where we were writing on the chat and people had to read. And then we were we were not there, but we were giving indications in the chat. And sometimes also the indications would be, okay, do this, And I remember this friend that told us, too much freedom is no freedom. That too much democracy is no democracy. That sometimes when, for example, it's a super typical situation. You arrive and you say, okay, please, can you present each other? Or can you present yourselves? And then who starts? And then there is this awkward moment. The one that starts means that they are very forward going. The one that stays, and there is this inner taking the power. That when you don't take power, there is somebody that's gonna take it. So sometimes it's not so much my way of seeing is not so much obliging the people to follow rules, but it's to set a protocol, and they can be against it.
How does it work within your own group in terms of these kinds of politics of who begins?
I think every group has a different dynamic. Even in different times, there are different dynamics. Like also last year, we were working in a project called Place Internationale, that it was about La Commune de Paris, the Paris Commune. And then we were a group of people, and then we decided, we will not have anyone leading. We will take all the decisions together. And then in the second day, there were no decisions taken. And then it was the collapse, And then I have the feeling there's never, with another project I did also, if everything has to be approved by everybody, fully approved, there is never a perfect version. Like I remember once we had to write a text and we started with this Microsoft Docs, and then it would be changed until the infinitum. And then at some point it was, please, can we decide after this time there is no more changes, And I accept somebody else, and then it's also about accepting that this part is going to be taken in charge by that person and this part by the other. And maybe I think it's to try to find this common ground where I can accept that person is at this moment taking charge of this.
Do you ever encounter this kind of sense of like, okay, there is failure here, And how do you, does that ever happen? And how do you think about that? And how do you process that?
I mean, like, because I worked very many years as a performer and in collaborating with a group, that you have the control. And I think once you make a score for the public, then you don't have the control at all. Like at some point, I had to accept things that I felt, oh, that's gonna fail, or I feel very embarrassed right now. And then you have to accept and you have to go through it. But I think I am not afraid of failure, because I think when I see something too perfect, it brings nothing, or too control.
I think people generally underestimate what audiences are willing to do. Like we did a performance, a ritual performance we did 24 times called Critical Magic, and I was skeptical at first about what we could actually do together, and it every time blew my mind. I think if the context is right and there is authenticity from you, people really, they want to go in. But we also made space we also set up the thing in such a way that people could have different degrees of interactions.
Yes, if somebody doesn't want to participate, you don't insist.
I'm really curious about how you as a body, feel inside of these performances, kind of beyond maybe what the performance is about, but some of the micropolitics of your own experience, maybe being read female, I don't know if that's how you identify, or being read white as well, I don't know if that's how you identify, and how that... do you feel like that person on stage? Does that transform? How does that affect the way in which you take up space or feel like you can?
Yes, this is, for me, is a big topic, because I worked 7 years and a half in the context of a company, and I felt very much sexualized. But like once you're out, of course, you realize it much more. Also, for me, it was really great that you put the name of extractivism, because it really helped me a lot to see it in things that I already was thinking about. I think it's a very great image or concept to think it about. Yeah, I felt I was very much sexualized. I had to wear very often high heels on the performances, which in a way, I was happy not to appear as a dancer on stage, but more as a human being that wears shoes. But now I don't want to wear high heels, ever. Just maybe if I decide, okay, I want for this precise moment to wear heels, but I don't want that anybody is asking me to wear heels. The same, I don't want anybody asking me to get naked on stage anymore. Or there are things that I think there are some things that just can come out of you that I think they shouldn't be asked. I think a choreographer they cannot ask, or a director cannot ask somebody to get naked.
Oh, I'm curious to hear more about that, because I often perform naked, and I suppose I've asked collaborators as well if they're willing to do that, and I'm curious to hear more about your feelings about that.
Yes, for me, I have the feeling, if you feel, okay, yes, I really want to do, and I also feel and I understand it, but for me, nudity connects to a higher degree of privacy and also of exposition. Somehow, I got my worst comment about my body when I was naked. For me, it brings a certain level of vulnerability and fragility that if I understand the purpose, I can say yes or no. Also, for me, it makes a big difference. For example, once I was seeing this Xavier Leroy performance, where he was also naked. And for me, if the choreographer is going naked and he's going through that same process, then it's a different than a person saying, okay, you go naked now.
Yeah, that's normally what we're doing. Is we're normally performing with other performers in this naked context. But what you raise is a good point about these kinds of divisions of labor in the theater context and who is expected to do what. So, for instance, we saw a performance recently where some of the people are taking a shit on stage. And it's great. I mean, it's very radical or whatever, but you can be sure the intendant of the theater is never going to come out and take a shit on stage. And so it's a question of like, who does that? Who is vulnerable in that way? Who will make themselves vulnerable? It's so naturalized that this person will do this and this person does that. Of course, the intendant doesn't take a shit on stage, but without that kind of reciprocity, then yeah, it can very quickly feel like I'm being exploited and that my nudity is being instrumentalized for the theater.
Yes, for me in my education, I went through the dance education, and it was clear that at some point I would have to go naked, and the teachers were like, I mean, yeah, like you will have to go naked. You have to feel comfortable in your body. And I think it can be a really great process or to go naked. And also I love to see pieces where there is nudity involved, as long as the people they are willingly putting themselves in this situation. But I know many cases where people didn't want it to be naked on stage and they were somehow appeal to do it.
Yeah, I think this question about willingly is really good, and Kate thinks a lot about consent.
Yes.
So if you're a dancer and you're expected to get naked, and it's part of your role and career path, to what extent are you willingly doing this thing?
Especially when it's the job opportunity, right? Like when it's you need the money, it's a nice opportunity otherwise, or you like generally you like the choreographer, it can become very tricky.
Also, I remember you were asking about that I didn't answer to that, no? Because I was answering about me feeling a female body and also me feeling a white body, because I collaborate often with people from Ivory Coast, and there's always like this, how can I face this, of this privilege? Or like also I have a lot of friends from Latin America, and sometimes it's to always be aware of your position and verbalize it, And if you are like, I think we should be able to speak about any issue, just if we make sure what is our starting point, or what is my voice. And my voice is this one, and I'm gonna speak about that, and this is my perspective, And I think if there's always like a context that I think we should be able to. And respect, of course, but there's always the possibility to speak about everything, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point, but it's a good reminder that every collaboration can start that way.
Yes, and also if there is a conflict, just express it. There was one piece where I had to learn kabuki. If I feel I am being appropriationist, just to say it. And I think whenever you make conscious and verbal this paradox.
Yeah, I think that making these things visible is a really important step, because we won't eliminate everything. We cannot eliminate every kind of hazard in the work that we do.
I feel also like my education was absolutely in Western standard contemporary dance, and sometimes I hate it so much that I refuse often to dance, because I have the feeling it's all like this appropriated language that nobody would consider as appropriation, but it is. And I've been appropriating like since 20 years, And there's also like a mix of like, I don't know, postmodern dance and then modern dance from US, and then and it's so crazy. And yeah, but what should I dance? Flamenco? Which, like, no way. It's all these questions that they are so...
Oh, yeah, it's endless, especially with the forms the body takes, because how can we, even if you say, let's dance from what comes out of me, No,
authentic movement.
It's already been coded, and already I've been influenced, so...
Yes.
Yeah.
Our language, it's everything a meme. Yes.
I think so too. And I don't expect you to have the answers to this, because it's a very difficult question, and we're also trying to figure it out. But how could artists try to eliminate this potential for harm in the work?
I don't know, because sometimes I even feel like dance in a way can be harmful if you dance too much, or like if you are very exhausted, Sometimes, like, because I went through this classic education, and sometimes I very much say that I think ballet is a sort of violence also to the bodies. So I don't know. Sometimes I think it is very important to speak it through, If you like to be in a constellation that you are free to say, oh, now I don't feel comfortable, or now yes, or for example, also recently I was with these friends that they were very much into let's wear sexy, let's wear a corset or stuff like that. And for me, I felt, no, this is a no-go area for me because I don't want to sexualize. But I feel sometimes it can be useful. And I think each person is in a different trip in a different moment. And if you are in the trip of sexualizing yourself or putting a lot of makeup or going drag, it's absolutely fine as long as it's your own trip and you want to be in it. And if somebody asks, and for example, for me also, when I had to go naked, I was, as long as you work on that scene, as in any other scene, you work and you really watch, and that it becomes what you want to say, and I feel comfortable in it, great. I was also in a piece from Tino Sehgal that implied nudity, but it was in the dark, and I felt absolutely saved. I felt very much on a safe space and taken care of.
Maybe nudity or like the body being sexualized comes under a kind of microscope and gets amplified. I'm curious if there's other things that are equally kind of vulnerable, but that actually don't have to do with sex or the explicit body, but maybe feel in the same way things that you would perhaps feel are exploitative or extracted from.
When we had this last Politics of Invitation, we had a run of talking. And I remember a lot, there was one of the Mo, that he's part of this Migranpolitan, he was talking a lot about this relation of being guest and being host. And somehow I feel, because I started, and because when you do a dance education, you are trained to be a servant, to be to be available for somebody else somehow. Of course, you can also be available to yourself. You can do self-exploitation, but somehow it's like I am working, so my body is available to receive indications somehow and to execute them. And then when you start working, you are absolutely an available body. And somehow you are also at the service of somebody, which of course I want, or I try to work with the people that I felt I want to be available for, or I want to collaborate. And then there is a collaboration. But the problem is that most of the time, this collaboration is not expressed as a collaboration, but as a power relation. That there is somebody that hires you and pays for you and is directing, and then you are also credited like this. And for example, in Politics of Invitation, we were trying that there is to break with even the visual hierarchy of who is inviting and then the guest. And then, okay, can we try to do it other way? Or for example, if there is, can there be 4 lines of directors? Instead of because it's, there is only the space for 1 name. Or for 2 names. No, but there are 6 names, on the headline. And it's so stupid, these things, But sometimes it's, how can we shift? And how can be everyone credited? Or also, I have troubles to take control, for example, in the relation with the theater. I think in a relation to a theater or to the funding bodies or whatever, I feel I'm the eternal guest. Because I'm in Germany and I'm Spanish. I'm eternal guest from the country that also is giving me fundings, that also I'm allowed to now collaborate with the theater, but I feel if I do something wrong.
I think it reminds me a lot of this whole kind of infinite debt concept that comes from Nietzsche and Deleuze, and we end up in these situations where we have this debt to people that we can never repay, to the funding bodies, to the theaters, to the German state for letting us be here even.
Yes.
And this is a hierarchy that already exists, and I don't actually know how you could disturb that in theater. I mean, could you imagine turning the gaze back on the funding bodies and having them justify themselves? And
Yes. I remember once I was at a piece that received a prize, And then they decide, okay, we're going to split it in equal parts. And that was a problem for, I don't know, whoever gave the prize. Because they say, no, you have to spend it like, I don't know, you have to spend it all together as a group, no? And then they say, no, but we don't work as a group, we want to divide. And then there was this guy that he was also an artist that was put in the position of asking us to justify what did we spend these 2,000 euros, you know?
Yeah.
And then at some point it's like, well, if I did holidays, so what, you know, with this price? So, and it's like, why we need all the time to justify ourselves and our work, you know, and also even with the system of Anträge.
Yeah.
Why I need to be 100% sure of what I want to do 6 months before I start even to rehearse, you know. And I think all this is it's undermining, or it's making you feel you are the eternal guest asking all the time for attention or...
Yeah. And that it can be taken away from you. And yeah, I sometimes wonder if it's sometimes weird because it works so well to make people feel insecure. And I get like on the one hand conspiratorial and like it's a plan, but then on the other hand, I think somehow it's not. It's somehow just like the way this organism of our society has evolved.
Yeah, indeed. There's a lot of consent involved in it somehow. You know, I don't know that I have been...
Yes.
Well, I guess because I still also feel a guest, that I just don't feel empowered to try to somehow undermine this funding process. Or I don't even know how I would if I desired. I don't know. I also don't know better solutions at the moment.
Yes, I mean, I think first, like the number one thing is to stop feeling or to promote that there is no competition amongst artists, that there is collaboration, which I think the whole system also prepares you so that you compete or that we compete against each other, which for me, that is like the worst ever. Yeah, first of all, we all need to stop feeling resentful against who got the money and who not, or like stop watching lists or stop comparing. This is number one. I work with a producer that she said, there is money for everybody. You just need to know how to take it or how to do it. And then, yeah, I think if we are united in a way, if that would be possible, that would bring things to another level. Like also, I collaborate with people that they really try to support your work as well. And I collaborated with people that they try to keep you where you are. I would definitely go with the people that try to support your work.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking, however, of a lot of friends who, after this more democratization of access to funding grants in the last 2 years, more widely distributed, I think there's a few who have said to me, you know, they applied for 12 different things and they got rejected from every single one, and they're feeling really discouraged. And I think that this feeling of discrepancy between all the people that did get funding and why they didn't, and they're struggling financially, like what... Yeah, and again, I know there's no answers to this, but like, what can we do with situations like that? How can we help each other?
Yeah, well, actually, I will be part now of, I think it's called Labs. It's a project initiated by Monika, Gintersdorfer, and other people. I think there will be a presentation in Berlin, and I think they want to work on having like a together, Kasse, that if somebody is really in need, they can, like, because it's what you say, sometimes you are just gifted or whatever, or you have a good concept suddenly, and then you are funded, and other people not. Or maybe for a while you are hype, and then I think it's good to support other artists. And that support can be like economically, it can be recommending people as well. It can be sharing the resources you have. You know, if somebody needs a space and you have a space, then to share it. It can be like also broadening, like to collaborate, to really share, that would be the best.
You just heard from performance artist Montserrat Gardó Castillo, who I spoke to in 2022 with my collaborator Adrienne Teicher in the context of a research on art and cultures of extraction. Montserrat studied dance at the Institut del Teatre, Barcelona, and at the Folkwang UdK, Essen, as well as journalism at the URL Barcelona. You can read more about her and the books that we referenced in the show notes. I'm Mad Kate, and you've been listening to S.W.E.A.T, a series of conversations about performance and performativity of the sexual and sexualized body in work. The theme music was composed by me and features the voice of performer and actress Laurie Baldwin. S.W.E.A.T airs every second Tuesday of the month at 13 hours Central European Time on Collaboratio Free Radios Berlin Brandenburg, broadcasting on 88.4 FM in Berlin, 90.7 FM in Potsdam, and streaming online at fr-bb.org. Afterwards, it's available for streaming from your podcast app. Thanks, Monsa, for this opportunity to talk about art with you, and thanks, dear listener.